This is a favorite of mine. It's the Walrus Audio R1 reverb pedal. It has mono or stereo out, USB for firmware and stuff like that, and stereo in and out, or mono. MIDI, old school MIDI connections even. The thing with this one is, of course, it's a reverb pedal, but true to Walrus Audio, it has some of the reverbs in this one is not what you would expect, perhaps. It has the usual ones, spring, hall, plate, but then it also has something they call BFR, big giant arena reverb, sort of hall-ish, depending on the setting. It can be very large, experimental. It also has the refract setting. It's a reverb. It sort of glitches and adds texture, and the reverb itself is lush. Depending on how you set it, you can have more or less of the glitchy type of effect coming into the reverb. And it also has something called air, shimmery reverb. With all those settings, you can also change the tone of the reverb. You switch from low to high, and the X factor. Low, and you decide how much of the low sound in your reverb is going to come through. The same with the high. The X setting depends on the overall setting you're choosing. It can do a lot of things. So depending on the sound, the X setting is different. It's not the same on all the sounds. But that's where the magic happens. You can set the decay, of course. Swell, for me, it's always 0. I don't use swell. I kind of liken it with a volume pedal. Strike the strings, and then you open up the volume pedal. So the sound comes after. The mix setting is, of course, the mix between your original sound coming in and the reverb. How much of the reverb signal should go through. Tweak is to tweak the rate, depth, and pre-delay of your sound. It's MIDI. You can have a lot of different stored settings. It's fairly easy to change a sound and then store it. There are banks of 3, A, B, and C. So you can have one sound on A, twiddle around on the knobs, save it, go to B, completely different setting. It remembers your settings if you store them. I usually go with 3 different settings on one bank where I can use them through a playlist. Most often I have a very sort of roomy, dry reverb. For certain songs I may have a more lush or longer reverb with a long decay. And for certain quirky songs perhaps where I don't play so much guitar as I provide with landscape kind of sound. I might go overboard with some whooshy, shimmery sound or even the refract function. But nevertheless, it's a very good reverb. If I do a wet dry, I use it as mono because, left and right I have the dry where it's no reverb, and I have the wet one where it's a lot of reverb, perhaps. But it is a stereo pedal, so if you have a stereo setup, you could definitely use this and have a very big sounding rig. A keeper for sure. The Walrus Audio products are really, really good. There is a learning curve to start using this one, and I suppose the other pedals from the Mako series are equally as. Have you figured one out, I think you can figure out the other ones too. The ACS one, for instance, or the M1 or D1 are more or less in the same series and have the same form factor. So they would look good on your pedal board if you have more of them. Quite expensive nowadays, but a really good reverb. Definitely check it out. This is a compressor pedal from TC Electronics. I figured that if I were to venture into more of a country type sound, or at least have the possibility, I learned that most country guitarists have at least one compressor pedal somewhere on their pedal board. I looked at several different kinds. It's not a one-trick pony. It has their patented Toneprint setting, which makes it possible to download artist settings to this pedal. But it also has a vintage setting and a spectra setting. I think the spectra setting is more modern, and the vintage setting is, yeah, more vintage. So the vintage settings would more liken a compressor pedal of old times. And the attack, blend, level, and sustain, I can get a very 80s, 90s sounding country guitar sound from it, but that's not what I'm aiming for. The most useful it's been for me is to have it in a setting where I have a lot of plucking in a song. I tend to use this one to get a more even sound in certain parts of a song or a playlist. Let's say it's a lot of plucking. Then I can engage the compressor, fiddle around with the settings so that when I play, to get an even sounding pick or finger picking sound, not to get a very sort of synthetic sound, even if it's possible, of course, but just slightly adding the compressor functionality to my sound. It's seldom on, but it happens. But I wouldn't want to be without one, because in certain settings, certain sounds I'm aiming for, the compressor is the one that provides me with that. This one is fairly priced with lots of functionality using the switch in here, and you're able to set the sustain, the attack, the blend, and the level. It's on the board, always on the board. Not always on, of course, but it is there if I need it. A very good one. This is the Memory Boy from Electro-Harmonix. It's a delay pedal. I used to have the Fender Reflecting Pool pedal, which is a combined reverb delay pedal. Sold that one. I was looking for a delay pedal at the same sale as a previous Electro-Harmonix pedal I bought. I also saw this one. Fairly priced, so I thought a lot of people are using the Memory Boy and others in the same product category and seems to be liking the sound they're getting. I wasn't looking for the Reflecting Pool from Fender had a lot of functions and functionality. This is more of a one-trick pony, but it still has more settings than you might expect from a fair-priced delay pedal. So I went ahead and bought this one. It is a fairly fun pedal. It's not the best delay pedal, but it's my delay pedal. I run it fairly conservative in the sense that it's not adding too much of its capability to my overall sound. However, I think, but I haven't looked it up, I think it boosts the signal somewhat. And that could be good if you need a boost for a solo or something like that. What I also do is to set the delay in such a way and blend it in such a way that it gives the overall guitar sound somewhat, not as a reverb, but a broader sound, a more hefty sound. It comes through a lot better with this one. I have been looking for other delay pedals, but I'm running with this at the moment. I think it provides what I need currently, so it stays on the board. In certain cases, I think I could put together a smaller board with this as the room provider, so to speak. If I don't have a reverb pedal on a smaller board, I could still bring this one. It would give me what I need in a smaller setting. You can crank it on the depth knob here. You can have it in 3 different settings: chorus, expression pedal, that one, and vibrato. I usually have it in the expression pedal setting. If I set it to vibrato or chorus and crank the settings here, it can space. You can go to space with this one. That's what I'm saying. It's very experimental. If you set it to max settings in the depth and fiddle around with feedback, this one really goes to space. A very experimental pedal, if you want it to be. No depth at all, and the delay setting is almost as 50s kind of slapback, but I blend it in so that you can hardly hear it, other than what I think it does also boost my signal. So overall, it's a good delay pedal, and it's a good delay pedal if you like to experiment with your sound and go way over top with the delay functions. We'll see if this sticks around, but if I replace it with another modern type of delay. You have the mini versions, you have an even bigger one with even more functions, I think. The Memory Man was the first one, the Memory Boy, you have the Memory, I don't know, Mini, something like that. So there are lots of options, and this was on sale. I've heard about it, I've listened to it, so I took a shot. The Memory Boy from Electro Harmonics.